Hey there, everyone. This is Ginger, and we are here for another episode of Fighting the Void. Another early morning episode. I promise eventually I'll be done with the hours and we can get back to business as usual. I'm really looking forward to that because I like talking to people and doing interviews, and I really, really, really am looking forward to getting back to that here, hopefully in a couple of weeks. And anyway, we're going to go ahead and get right into it, though, because what I want to talk about today is some of the things that have been going on. And now I'm sure anyone watching this pays attention to the news and not just the typical mainstream slash corporate media. You're getting your information from other sources like Daily Wire, Blaze, um, wherever else out there. I know a lot of people just get their news scrolling through their Twitter feeds, which I get a lot of news from there right now as well. Hey, Matthew, how you doing, man? And yeah, believe it or not, other people are up and in front of their computers right now on a early Monday morning. But right now, there's been, of course, and I've talked about it a lot, Civil War and all of that jazz. Tim Pool can't shut up about it. There's all kinds of other things. All of this is going on, right? And there are definitely some indicators out there as far as what's the next stuff that's going to happen, and or at least that something is happening, that our society has essentially transformed, frankly, beyond anything resembling recognition, and that we're probably not going to be allowed to go back to normal because of everything that's happened with the whole COVID thing. And however anyone feels about that in particular, I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into the actual virus and its effects and all of that right now. I'm mostly going to be focusing on the their response to it and how that is in fact being used to institute some sort of sweeping change, not just in the United States, but globally. And the fact is, this is perhaps this is the granddaddy of, never let a crisis go to waste syndrome. All right, this is the it's the big one basically, as far as all of that goes. And there's some actual little legitimate hardcore proof of that I'll be bringing up here shortly. Um, First, we're going to go into just a quick overview of things that are going on, and that's essentially, if you're paying attention, you know that there's a lot of going back to, backwards on the lockdowns. New York has been pushing it, specifically signaling out uh, shutting down synagogues and black churches. Those two phrases came out of Andrew Cuomo's mouth. So you can't say that he was just signaling out the Jews, but he's basically signaling out uh, anybody who's been. He's basically signaling out religious organizations that haven't been interested in playing ball with him and aren't likely to shoot back. Because let's face it, if he starts threatening to shut down mosques, yeah, he might be stirring up a bit of a hornet's nest there. But again, nothing new to anyone that watches this particular show. So, and also you had de Blasio actually sending the cops out to shut down a celebration of which I don't know which Jewish holiday it was. I'm not super familiar with all of them and when they land, but they were doing something that I think they probably do pretty normally, which is go out in the streets in their communities. And the Orthodox Jews, they tend to all live in the same neighborhoods. They tend to all, it's normal. The housing, the businesses, and everything. It's all them basically. It's a little Jerusalem essentially. And anyway, they sent the cops to try to break it up. Uh, the Orthodox Jews, they weren't playing along. God bless them. And the cops basically realized, okay, if we're actually going to shut this down, we're gonna have to get violent. And these people are doing nothing other than what they normally do. We are not going to get violent and round these people up because they're not wearing a flipping mask. All right. So the cops wound up actually protecting the situation. So, good on you, New York cops. You did your job well. But the fact that de Blasio sent them out there in the first place, not to protect them, but to shut them down, I call that a pretty strong leading indicator, along with the rolling back of lockdowns in various places. You also have here in Michigan, Whitmer actually, I think this is after the court ruling that said her mandates and everything were nonsense. Actually, some area up north in the UP, they when Michiganders say up north, we basically mean anything north of like Newaygo. That's typically what it means. Look it up on a map; you'll figure it out. Anyway, there's some area in the Upper Peninsula, she rolled back on the lockdowns. And again, I think this was after the court ruling that said, yeah, all of your mandates and everything are unconstitutional. You don't get to do that. Also, for anyone, again, who was paying attention, she said right after that ruling that she would basically keep trying to do her stuff through alternative sources of authority. Basically, all the executive agencies, she would just, instead of issuing an executive order mandate, she'd issue a directive through Health and Human Services, which is exactly what she did when it came to masks. In fact, in some ways, that makes it worse for businesses because now the businesses have to do it or they get fined or lose their license through the health department. Now, the people walking in and out, they don't have to, but the staff does have to wear the mask. Now, again, this is a timing thing, and I'm not sure of the timing, but the Attorney General, she said that she wasn't going to be enforcing any more of the governor's mandates and all of that jazz. Again, I think that might have actually been before Whitmer issued the thing to the health department. I'm not 100% positive. I got to double check that, but I think she issued it like just a couple days before Whitmer did the thing with the health department. And in any case, here all the businesses are still scared, and all the mask signs are still up essentially. Now, different businesses are enforcing that differently. They may or may not care, but at the very least, they're either scared of the state, scared of the virus, or they're just confused and they don't know what's going on. So, yeah, that hasn't really changed anything about that. And yeah, Matthew, don't worry, I'm going to be getting to that here in just a moment as far as Michigan not revolting against this tyranny, or actually revolting, because in some ways we have. There was the Unlock Michigan petition that is still, all the signatures have been gathered, like almost 540,000 signatures were gathered to basically revoke Whitmer's emergency powers. Now, here's the thing. The signatures have to be verified and everything. And the way that works is whatever commission, whatever board it is that does that, they take a sample of whatever size and they go through it with a fine-tooth comb and look for any possible error on the petition. Any potential error in the way it's formed, any potential error in the way it's filled out, a name misspelled, whatever. As soon as there's one error found on a form, the whole form is booted. So and then they take the results of that sample, extrapolate it over the whole number. So if they find, if they take a sample of say 500 and it turns out 50 of them are bad, they'll extrapolate that out to like the 500,000, be like, oh, 50,000 of these are bad, and toss them out. Now, if that's the case, we're still good to go because the actual number that they needed was something like 320 or something thousand to actually officially revoke Whitmer's emergency powers according to the law. Because Michigan has this weird thing where you can actually do a people's veto. So if there's something that goes through the state legislature and then the governor doesn't sign it, governor vetoes that bill, the people can actually petition and get all the signatures and everything. If the signatures are verified, then it becomes law regardless of what the governor says. So we have that. However, this would just revoke the governor's emergency powers. And as I understand it, it revokes the law that she was citing to give her those powers in the first place. So no one would be able to do it again legally. And that's the kicker right there, right? Because she's just ignoring a court order that essentially already said that. That already said that law that the petition also is addressing said that law is illegal. You can't do stuff under that law. You're violating the Constitution because that law violates the Constitution. well, as I said, she's already kind of ignoring it. So I'm not sure what good the petition is ultimately going to be doing, but we'll see. At the very least, I hope it continues to go forward and the law just gets officially completely stricken from the books. And it also sends an important message that we're not just going to keep taking this laying down. There's also another petition getting underway, YouTube video I'm going to watch tonight or tomorrow called Bamboozled. It's from a lawyer in Michigan who's working on getting a petition together to just flat out kick Whitmer out of office. People have tried getting that language approved before the Unlock Michigan thing got going, but the petition language kept getting rejected on completely spurious and ridiculous reasons for the most part. But they basically weren't going to approve language to remove the governor. That's just how it was going to be. However, now she's directly violating and trying to work her way around constitutional orders, or rather court orders saying that her actions are unconstitutional. So what I'm hoping is that the Unlock Michigan petition and that court ruling kind of kicked the door open just enough that these petitions to recall Whitmer will be able to go through and actually start getting to a point where there's forms and people can start signing them. Let's hope. That's what I'm really hoping for here, but we'll see. Okay. And since we're on the subject of Michigan, there was of course a number of apparently 13 people now that have been charged in the plot to kidnap Whitmer. It's I don't yet it's even scary with those words, isn't it? I don't condone going and trying to kidnap the governor. We're not quite at full-on tyranny levels yet, but and not to mention these guys were yahoos. But my biggest issue, and these guys, they were anti-Trump, anti-police, anti just about everything people. They were anarchists, they were BLM supporters. These guys were not at all representative of the mainstream right. They were planning to go attack cops in their homes. Yeah, these are not right-wing agitators in the slightest. And to be fair, I'm not sure it's accurate to call them left-wing agitators either. Because if you go far enough right and you go far enough left, and my right, my left, they kind of become the same thing. They kind of become the same weird hodgepodge of beliefs that don't really fit into either category, but in and of themselves, actually, there is a bit of consistency there. So they just they get to a similar spot where they just want to tear down everything. Where they differ is what they want to happen after and exactly how they got to that point. Like essentially, these guys, they sound like they might have been guys who came at it from the right and went kind of through the libertarian to anarchist route. Is kind of what it seems like to me, as opposed to the progressive and to going the other direction from liberal to progressive to Antifa. And that's my suspicion anyway. There isn't a ton to back up either one, at least not yet. Either way, and the FBI actually went to I think they went to the Michigan militia, because I think these guys were like a subgroup, and they actually went to them to help get these guys. So the militia actually turned in these guys that were planning on kidnapping and trying the governor for treason. Now, it's like, what did you guys think what did they think was going to happen here? Like, they're going to do a citizen's arrest, as one sheriff apparently suggested they were actually doing, and try her for treason, and then what? Then what do you think is going to happen? Nothing good. Apparently, they wanted to spark a civil war, and you know what? Had they been successful in their plans, they might have been successful. And I don't want to see that happen. To be honest, I really don't. Now, I think it's coming? Yes, but I don't want to see it happen. I'm not an accelerationist. I don't want to do things to encourage it. So, which is why, again, I'm not advocating people go and try to commit violence against their political leaders. or elected political officials, I should say, because I don't really consider Whitmer much of a leader. I eagerly await the chance to vote her straight out of office, and I will happily sign any petition that's going to get her recalled and anything that will limit her power. And in the meantime, I will continue to ignore her insofar as I am able, which means no, I'm not wearing a mask somewhere unless, unless I absolutely need to be there or absolutely have to, that sort of thing. Just basically ignore these people, and they may not go away, but they also don't matter if everyone just says, I don't care what you say. But you heard me mention the sheriff. Apparently there was a sheriff, I don't know where, but a sheriff somewhere in Michigan who said that these guys, the Wolverine Watchmen, that they weren't really doing a kidnapping, they weren't really doing an act of terrorism, they were doing a citizen's arrest. Now, I don't think you can really make that claim, and certainly these guys weren't, like I said, aren't friends of the cops. But the fact that there's a sheriff, which is an elected position, is openly saying things like that, that's a pretty good leading indicator of where tensions are in the country. And just looking around, probably I've met the state, but probably the country as a whole. Especially when you look at, there was just a pro-Trump rally last night in Denver where one of the guys there got shot. I don't have the full story on that yet. Apparently he deployed pepper spray and then was shot. I don't know what happened to lead to him deploying the pepper spray at all. I have no idea. I'm sure that story will be coming out here in the near future, because you can't do just about anything without 9,000 cell phone videos popping up. Before I leave Michigan, Matthew, that's a good question. Will Whitmer's behavior hurt Democrats come November? I really don't know. It's going to vary. It's going to vary by district, because, as I understand it, her approval ratings are still ridiculously high, and that's mostly the east side of the state that would be driving that. That's where you get the well-to-do college-educated liberals and everything. That basically Lansing and then Ann Arbor, the Detroit area, is kind of the center of political power in the state of Michigan. Other places tend to go blue for different reasons. Like, again, up north, Newaygo and north of that tends to go blue more for welfare reasons than it does for anything else, because it's extremely rural, extremely poor. But again, as people may remember, Michigan went red in the last presidential election. Now, there are a ton of people, and it's a ton of people who normally might vote blue. A lot of union workers, a lot of blue collar guys who once upon a time would have been voting Democrat reflexively because their dads did, because they were the supporters of the little guy. They weren't supporting the big businesses the way it was always seen that Republicans did, and Republicans did, let's be honest, and still do. But that's not always 100% bad either. Different conversation. A lot of these guys, a lot of these blue collar average guys that you would see at the bar, that you see every day at the grocery store, driving around in their trucks and their minivans with their kids, a lot of them have sort of paying attention. They realize now that the Democrats, if they ever were, they're definitely not what their parents and the grandparents were voting for in the past. They have completely changed. So it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna vary by district. It's hard to say. A lot of areas that are full of those blue collar guys, they're going to go red, places probably that never have before. I don't know that Democrats are going to gain any ground anywhere, because the only way I can see that is suburban moms really hate Trump, apparently. Apparently, there's even internal polling at the White House that says as much, that they might agree with Republicans on the issues, but they just hate Orange Man so much. So they'll probably vote blue. This is what the polling, I guess, is saying. So we'll see. I don't know. But I don't ultimately see the Democrats gaining much ground. It's more a question of how much they're going to lose. So will it hurt them? I don't know if Whitmer's behavior in particular will, but the Democrats in general behavior, yes, it will definitely hurt them. And Whitmer, yeah. Honestly, any purple district, it's hard to see it not going red. So yeah, it's going to hurt them. How much? I really don't know. I don't think Ann Arbor's suddenly going to flip red. I can say that with confidence. But yeah, a lot of other areas they're going to lose some seats in the state legislature, and hopefully, John James becomes a senator as well. He's an Army veteran, helicopter pilot. He ran last time around, didn't get it, but apparently Democrats are worried this time around because they're putting a lot of money into defeating him. So, fingers crossed, huh? Anyway, so yeah, definitely indicators in Michigan. You got Whitmer and her just blatantly ignoring court orders and trying to do whatever it is that she thinks she can continue to get away with. Now, those things will be challenged in the court still, and she will probably lose. But that takes time, money, and effort. So you got that. You got Whitmer just going, whatever. You got our rolling back lockdowns. You got that sheriff saying, basically saying, yeah, well, it might have been a citizen's arrest. You know what I'm saying? And you've got, of course, the fact that militia guys were planning to kidnap Whitmer and also to attack cops in their homes. Not good. Tensions high. You know what I mean? Other things. You've got again the pro-Trump supporter who was shot in Denver. This is becoming not unusual now. Not certainly not every time, but we're getting to the point where it's like every other week somebody's getting shot at these rallies. Whether it's a Trump guy shooting somebody in self-defense like Rittenhouse, or a flat-out ambush style attack like what happened in Portland a little while back. This is not going well. And incidentally, the guy who did that, if you recall, it was Mike something or another, was the ambusher. He basically, the cops came after him and he decided to commit suicide by cop. But now you've got Antifa basically holding vigils and memorials for this guy and celebrating it. There've been other ambush attacks on cops and everything. This is not good. You've got lots of people in the mainstream, like Spike Lee, talking about seeing civil war coming down the road. You've got on a bigger scale, you've got Pelosi setting up this commission to determine basically presidential fitness, which a lot of people speculate this isn't about getting rid of Trump, it's about getting rid of Biden if he should win. Honestly, that seems like it'd be a much easier case to make. I guess we'll see, right? Hopefully we won't see. Hopefully Trump will win and there will be no Biden-Harris at the White House. Harris administration together with Joe Biden, as Kamala said. Let's see here. What else? Other big leading indicators are the fact that lockdowns seem to be going the wrong direction around the world again. COVID cases are rising for whatever reason, and UK has gone backwards. I guess Spain, I think France, Germany, other places are rolling their stuff back, while we've got Sweden out there going, yeah, we never really did a lockdown, and we're like having extremely few new cases, like at all, and even way fewer deaths. It's something they haven't had a double-digit day in weeks, if not months, as far as deaths go. So basically, Sweden seems to be over it. If they don't get any sort of second wave this winter, incontrovertible proof that you don't need mask mandates, you don't need lockdowns to beat this thing. It's just done if you just let things run their course. And not to mention, again, why are we trying so hard to beat it? It's something with like a 99.9 something percent survival rate. What are we so worried about? Indeed. You got even the WHO now saying that lockdowns are a bad idea. The World Health Organization, finally, it's like, way to catch up. But how many governments are going to listen to them now? They're so invested in this lockdown strategy. I don't know if they're going to be interested in backing off at any time soon. We'll see, though. We'll see. I don't think they'll back off if Trump is elected unless he gets serious about saying, okay, you're not getting your funding. I'm actually going to start seriously advocating that that everybody's ignore you. We'll see what happens again. Now, I've got two more big indicators. One of them is very big. One of them gets to the fact that this is a global thing where people are not wasting the crisis. Like I said, lockdowns are ramping up again around the world, apparently. And now the World Economic Forum, which apparently is associated with the UN, they are pushing this thing called the Great Reset. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is on weforum.org. It is all official and everything. There's a trailer for it on YouTube. I think I came across it. I think her ad is like at PDX Selena or something like that. Go check her out just to give credit where credit is due. There's a trailer for it on YouTube, and it's basically about how we should use the COVID crisis, the COVID crisis, the manufactured COVID crisis, if you ask me, and all the civil unrest and everything around the world to do a reset on capitalism. I basically, and from the imagery and everything they use in the trailer, again, go look it up. It's eerie, and everything it's for a radical environmentalist agenda. Part of it. And there's also a massive socialist SJW component to this because let me get the website up here on the shared screen just so we can kind of scroll through it a little bit together. Take me just a minute to click through, and there we are. Bring it up there. Oh, wrong. There we go. Okay, let me get it a little bit bigger here, and we'll take a little walk through this. Let's see here. So you can see on there, urgent need for global stakeholders to cooperate in simultaneously managing the direct consequences of the COVID-19 crisis, which we shall not let go to waste. To improve the state of the World Economic Forum is starting the Great Reset Initiative. That isn't distressing dystopian talk. I don't know what is. Let's see here. Historic crossroads and stuff, that sort of language is getting used. Now, I'm going to scroll down here to the articles. You've got, let's see here, lots of mental health talk. You got the Pope talking about resetting the global economy, which, yes, he has said things like that about how capitalism wasn't up to the challenge, which, give me a freaking break. I'm sorry, Holy Father. I'm a good Catholic boy, but I'm glad your infallibility does not extend to realms of economics, because that might be one of the silliest things I've ever heard. Like, give me a break. It was a bunch of lefties shutting down the governments, words are hard, shutting down economies around the world that caused the economic issues, not the COVID itself. Egad. Leave it alone, and I'm willing to bet that businesses and everything would do very, very well in addressing it. Let's see, you got investing women, small and micro business owners, and a lot of this is stuff that was already going on. They're just bringing it under this new umbrella. Social justice, inclusion, and sustainable development, yada, yada, yada. Standard stuff we're used to hearing, but it's being brought under this thing as part of one guided, planned initiative to literally change the global economy. That's the thing. Let's see, COVID-19 is redrawing the geopolitical map. It's like, it's not even hiding it because they don't feel like they've got anything to hide. Let's see, a pandemic has revealed our most precious asset. Yeah, healthy aging. Oh goodness. Considering these people talk about euthanasia half the time, yeah, I'm throwing the BS flag there. So just going through, looking at basic articles and everything there, they are talking about, it's basically the UN is pushing a global SJW agenda meant to literally reset, change the global economy, no doubt to a centrally controlled command type economy that is just not going to be great for anyone. They're kind of looking at taking socialism and making it worldwide whether you like it or not. Let's see if I can get this screen off of here. There we go. And I'm going to be following that more closely because they're putting out videos and everything up, discussions. So I'm gonna keep an eye on them and see what kind of nonsense they're pushing. Because again, the mask is continually coming off more and more, and they feel the need to hide less and less. So it should be very interesting as this continues. So again, you've got uh, basically propaganda posters and stuff are starting to show up, like in England and no doubt other large cities around the world, pushing this reset idea. So be on the lookout for legislation also in your local areas that will kind of feed into this. Oh yeah. Matthew, thank you. Going on to the Denver thing, I didn't delve too much into that, but basically NBC apparently hired the shooter as a security guy, but apparently in Denver you're supposed to have a security guard license, which he did not have, which is really funny because the initial claim was that he was. That he was a licensed security guard, so he couldn't possibly have been a radical Antifa guy. Okay, then, if you say so. One other leading indicator I wanted to bring up. It's small, it's innocuous, and that's exactly why it scares me the most. Down in one of the handy things about online and a couple of the industries I've worked in is you get you kind of get to know people or know about people everywhere, wherever they are. So I got on good authority that down in Vicksburg, Mississippi, they had, like a lot of places, they had curfews and everything during the height of COVID, right? But I guess that's since rolled back, thank goodness. However, as you may know, they've got, new Hurricane Delta rolling up into the Gulf, and they went and instituted a curfew for that storm. Why does that bother me? Because apparently, according to my source, that's never been done for a storm before. Apparently not once. This is brand new policy. Oop, I think I might have did I mute myself or did I turn it off? Doesn't seem as though I'm muted. Anyway, should be good. The fact that that they've never done it before, it means they're used to it now. I'm not even accusing their mayor, their city council, or anything like that of being part of the plan. I'm not. What I am saying is that it's evidence that the plan is working, insofar as there's a plan. People are used to this idea now, are used to the idea of having to stay home, of being safe, and of doing it according to government orders. Something they never would have done before. Now, because of COVID, we are now, or at least there in Vicksburg, and I'm sure throughout lots of the country, people are used to the idea of being indoors whenever the government tells them, of having their movement, having their freedom restricted. We're used to it. That's the one that scares me the most. Not this, because this great reset thing is worrisome. A curfew in Vicksburg because of a hurricane, something they've never done before. That's worse. That's scarier to me because it means we're much more likely to go along with things like the Great Reset. That will just follow along and run right off whatever cliff it is we're being driven towards. That's why that scares me the most. Now, of course, always a question is, what does one do? And it's a question I ask myself a lot. I'm still working through it. I'll be honest with you. I don't have definitive answers. Obviously, being a Christian, I'm going to advocate praying and fasting as the best thing that anyone can do. But that's never what anyone means when they're asking that question, right? They're asking for things that are that are concrete actions they can take and everything. You know, and a lot of times now people are asking, like, okay, when do we go 1776? I don't know. And the answer is I don't know either. Um, you know, I guess one thing is when they start, you know, coming for people's guns. That's a pretty clear indicator. It's like, well, you're coming for it, I might as well use it. That sort of thing. Uh, you know, because obviously we all know that any any government that's going to go full on tyrannical is going to do what they can to take people's guns away from them first, which again I think is part of why the lockdowns and everything have gone on so long, why they're suppressing free speech, why these riots are being allowed to go on while they're doing like, lockdowns of everybody else, and why they're more, why they're um, prosecuting more people on the right. I don't mean in terms of numbers, but in terms of like they're more quick to prosecute people on the right, I should say. I think they're trying to provoke a response. I think they're trying to provoke a violent response from somebody on the right or someone they can associate with the right, like those Wolverine Watchmen guys, and use that as the pretext to go and try to take guns away, or at least take guns away from selected groups. I think that is, or even in selected areas. I think that really is the way they're going to go about it, because I think a national mandate, a national buyback, or whatever, is not going to get the response they want. They won't get enough willing participation, and they'll find a few people here and there, I'm sure, but in the long run, they're not going to go along. I mean, people just aren't going to go along with it, not really. So they're going to, but if they can get a pretext and they can more, you know, go in sort of with a high degree of force to remove people's guns, and that's different. And they're going to get a lot more support for that, or at least by the time people realize what's going on, it won't matter as much. So I would definitely say, definitely don't give them don't give them that ammunition. Don't give them the excuse to try to round up your stuff. Keep it cool. Continue to protest. Continue to petition. Do all of that. Speak out against. Ignore stupid orders whenever they're coming down. Do not get violent. We are not there. And you know, people talk about the 3%, the founding fathers, and all of that. They worked at it for years, petitioning King George in Parliament before they finally decided it was time to throw down. They worked at it for many years and getting turned away at every time. And we've got to keep that in mind. We've got to keep our perspective about us a little bit. I'm not saying take it laying down, not in the slightest, but I am saying there's time yet. There's lots of time yet before it gets time to throw down. Okay, don't go crazy. Don't go Wolverine Watchmen. All right, bad idea. Bad idea. Anyone who wants to do that, disavow. To quote Matt Christensen. I don't want any of that happening. Not to mention, gosh, there's just the consequences. It will be crazy. But so okay, continuing with what actually to do. Obviously, in addition to praying and fasting, in addition to continuing to work with the system to change it, I actually quickly on that. Don't just pay attention to national elections. Don't just pay attention to what's going on with the Senate, with senators and House representatives and the president. Pay attention locally, because part of how the left was able to do this was able to do this complete cultural takeover. They worked at it for decades. They did. It may feel like it, but this did not happen overnight. They started actively doing this back in the 60s and 70s. They actually thought they had it back then. what the anti-Vietnam protests and all of that jazz. And then when they realized no, it wasn't ready yet, they figured they needed another 30 years. Well, it turns out they were wrong. They needed 60 because they needed a whole nother generation to make its way through this. See, that 30 years was enough time for them to basically take over the institutions. The next 30 was the time that they needed to get a whole nother generation through the institutions. So now there's a whole bunch of people that they have indoctrinated with their beliefs that are now out in society and are willing to go along with whatever the experts tell them. And we are there, and we have to realize, and wherever you are on the right end of the spectrum, or heck, even if you're not on the right, even if you're like a center leftist, a center left person, a classical liberal type, or even a liberal type, who is just looking at stuff going, what in the ever living crap is going on? How did we get here? And how do I change it? Well, you got to realize it's going to take time. It is not, barring literal divine intervention, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take years. It's going to take decades. And it's going to start not with, we're not going to win if Trump gets elected, it's not going to magically solve everything. It's going to solve very little. What it does is it buys us time. It buys us time to get our foot in the door in the local institutions where we can actually make a local difference. Yes, it's small. No, it won't get headlines. You won't be able to say, I did this to all of your friends on Twitter. Who cares? That's how you actually go about changing the culture, one little bit at a time. And yeah, we're going to have, even if we're all on the same side of you got to stop the left, we're going to have our own internal arguments. All right, we're gonna fight about things like on the right. We're going to fight about things like the police. We're going to fight about things like the proper role of the military. We are going to fight about abortion. We're going to fight about drug legalization. We're going to fight about all of it. Proper immigration policy. How much, how free should the free market be? We're going to fight about these things, okay? But that's good. That's good. It means there's still a diversity of thought. It means there are arguments to be had. All right. Some of those things obviously have clear answers, I think, particularly abortion. That's nowhere on the same level as tax policy, but we're going to have these arguments, and that's a good thing. And we need to remember we need to have them calmly and respectfully. We can be heated, but we got to remember our friends at the end trying to find common solutions to problems, and that's one of the things we have lost in this country. Okay, and it's honestly, it is mostly on the left where they think everybody that disagrees with them is evil. However, there are plenty on the right who feel the same way. We cannot become that. We have to remember to have those discussions and have them going forward as we continue to try to change the culture. That doesn't mean compromising on our principles. It means having conversations and trying to understand where the other person is coming from and realizing we may not have it all figured out. They probably don't have it all figured out. And together, maybe you come up with something better for everybody. Maybe. That's part of it. That will be a big part of it as we start to regain a little bit of cultural traction. Now, beyond that, and that kind of assumes that we're not too far gone already. Beyond that, if we are too far gone, again, this is a message you can find anywhere. Get yourself some guns and ammo, y'all. Come up with a plan. Come up with friends, local friends that you know personally, that you can trust and you can work with, and get yourself set up. Get yourself some fallback locations. Straight up bugging out and disappearing into the woods is not really viable for 99.9% of the population. You will die. I will die if I do that. It's a good question, Matthew. Let's address it here shortly. Sorry, I derailed myself. And of course, have yourself fallback locations, because, like I said, straight up bugging out really is not viable for 99.9% of the people. You might need to leave where you currently are, but have a fallback location in mind. Someplace where you can go that's far, maybe it's a friend's house, a relative's house, whatever. Somewhere that's far away from the cities, preferably where you can grow some food. Because the more we can detach from the systems, the better off we'll be. The better we'll be able to handle whatever comes, whether it's just losing a job, whether it's the zombie apocalypse, an asteroid hitting, civil war, you know, global pandemic that actually is a real pandemic. We'll be able to actually, you'll be able to better weather whatever it is that happens if you've got a little bit of self-sufficiency and you're detached from the standard systems, even a little bit. The more you can do, the better off you will be in the long run. Yes, it's hard. Trust me, I know. It's hard. It's expensive at first, but again, in the end, you wind up saving. So food, guns, ammo. Get yourself some basic skills. There's a lot of guys out there who are way better at that than I am. I'm still in the very beginning stages of learning necessary stuff myself, but it's coming. So do that, focus on those things a little bit. Now, Matthew mentions a peaceful successionist movement. It's not in and of itself, that sounds good. But there's a lot of different issues tied in with there. Like, if you put it this way, if I could get a bunch of cool people together and go to like Oregon, just because Oregon's pretty. I would happily live in Oregon if it wasn't for Portland. But let's just go with that. You get together and you basically just kind of take over and be like, you know what, we're gonna be our own thing now. Thank you very much, and just succeed. We are now the non-crazy person's Republic of Oregon. Well, okay, great. What does that look like? One, does the rest of the country let you do that? Maybe not. Personally, I think doubtful. After all, that's there was a certain secessionist movement a while back. It kind of led to a civil war. Of course, this is obviously a different environment for different reasons. That said, hard to imagine the country allowing that. But then again, we're disaffected. We're disenfranchised enough. It's possible that whoever's in charge at the time just cuts their losses and says, you know what, y'all go do your thing. I don't care. There's also the issue of, but you then at that point, you do have to remember to also provide for your own defense and everything. And I don't mean your own personal. I mean, if you're setting up essentially your country and everything, you're going to have to, even if it's small, even if it's just like a group of, say, 20 families off in the middle of nowhere. So you're not doing a formal succession. You're just saying, you know what? We're just going to run things the way we want here. We don't really care about any of you people out there. People have tried that and definitely has met with government force. Ruby Ridge wasn't exactly that, but Waco was sort of that, even though obviously Koresh was a wacko, and it was a bit of a cult. Even if you're doing it just like normally, I don't know that the government's going to let you get away with it. Eventually they'll notice something's weird out there and all of that, in which case you still have to provide for your basic defense. And if you're trying to be totally self-sufficient, then you do find yourself with a lot of the basic issues and everything that any group of people has to deal with. You're going to have personality conflicts. You're going to have some sort of economic system set up. You're going to have to be willing to defend it. So there are a lot of different issues that come along with that, and it depends. Again, Matthew, honestly, I would love to actually have you on in the near future to discuss this in detail, because just spitballing on my own, I can only come up with so much, to be honest. I basically, in principle, I like the idea of a peaceful successionist movement. practicality, I'm not sure how well it would work. But honestly, I'd be willing to give it a try over having to throw down, because I don't really want to have to kill people at all. Uh, at all. In fact, I won't unless it's kind of a self-defense type situation. Uh, but yeah, I'm sure this is getting censored all over the place on YouTube right now. I'm just gonna have to direct link this to people because I'm sure this conversation's got to be triggering all the algorithms. All of Susan's little censoring algorithms. It's gonna be like, you said this. I said I did want it to happen, but anyway. So yeah, peaceful successionist. I support the concept, but I think you really have to think through a lot of the practical issues that would be associated with it before you actually did it. So I don't know. I'm open to further discussion. Matthew, send me a DM on Twitter, and we can figure out if you would like to be on as a guest, and we can just kind of hash it out on air. And I think that is going to be about it here for tonight. I'm going to get to the gym, and I got to work on building my websites and all of that fun stuff. So as always, you can find us at Fighting Void on Twitter, email fightthevoid@gmail.com. You can find me at Gingerman Editorial on the Twitter as well. And just as a reminder, and by about not quite this time yet, late next month, we are going to be officially launching the Fighting Void Network website, various other shows. Pay attention to the @Fighting Void Twitter account for more announcements in that regard here coming up in the next few weeks. We're going to be slow rolling the promotion of this, and I'm really looking forward to it. You'll recognize a lot of the names and faces that have been here on the show before, and a couple of new ones as well. And there's going to be providing a lot of different content from movie reviews, history, more discussions like this. I'm really looking forward to it. I expect it to be a lot of fun, and yeah, it's gonna be cool. So stay tuned, and as always.